we're on now. You want to start with a prayer again?
Sure. I'll say it. Or did you just say you're going to say it, Braden? Or do you want me to say it?
I think say it again. You can go ahead.
Okay. Father, grateful for this day, grateful that we're once again able to meet as a group to discuss this case. We ask you to help us better understand what's going on and to be able to come to a conclusion that would make sense to prepare us in the future. Again, we're grateful and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
And do a spiritual thought.
I have a really, really quick one I could share. I said I have a really quick spiritual kind of thought that I could share, I guess.
And then I'll do one too. So
Okay. That's fine. We've just been, my daughter started Young Women's, and so we've just been talking about some of her goals and activities. And so I was just, this whole week we've been talking about service and how we can, she has to serve for like 3 hours outside of the house to do stuff. And it was just constantly on my mind, even though how busy I am in school and work and everything, there's always a few minutes that we can look outside of ourselves and what we're doing to help somebody. So that's just kind of been a theme this week in our house.
That's awesome. Does she do that? Is it like a requirement that she has to do so much service for young women?
One of the girls in our ward is autistic, and they have decided to help her get her medallion that's set up so that if the whole group of girls wants to help her, they can take different goals and do them for her. And so that was the one that my daughter was assigned, and that she picked was to do service for her.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Is she like high functioning, the girl?
Not really. She doesn't talk very much. From seeing her at church, but Abby went over to her house 2 weekends ago, and so they're taking turns to go over and help her at home. So they go over for like a half hour, and they helped her make her bed and do a couple chores. I know she doesn't go to school; she's homeschooled and stuff. But yeah, so they help her do as much as she can.
That's awesome. Okay, so I am taking an accounting class right now. Something that my teacher, I think it's just the accounting department here, really focuses on is integrity. Mainly because accounting and business, there's a lot of dishonesty in the world. And something was a talk, it was by Elder Bednar when he was president here, I believe. But he talked about how if you leave Brigham Young University, Idaho without honesty and integrity, then you've pretty much failed. He said, like, even if you get straight A's and you cheated just a little, like you cheated yourself and you failed. Like, on the flip side, if you're like a straight C student, you should get C's, honest, then you've succeeded. He said, it's really this honesty and integrity. I thought, and that's just been the case with a lot of business classes I've taken here. And dealt a lot with honesty and integrity. So I think that's really cool.
I don't know how many times I've had to read that talk in all my business classes. It's pretty popular. Good.
Yeah, I read that last year. That was a good one.
So I'll read, I don't know if you guys have the case discussion pulled up, but it says, for students, read the follows along. It just looks like there's some bullet points. I don't know if they're questions or whatever, but I'll just start reading it. So far in this course, we have seen a few common threads and takeaways. Founders matter, experience, passion, and vision shape the business and can make the difference between success and failure. This plan at the founding stage of the company is a collection of hypotheses. In other words, guesses. Startups create value systematically testing hypotheses and making changes to the plan. And the test result in the need to change. Early tests tell us a lot about the viability of a business and where more information is needed. In previous cases, analyze, that's the word. Analyze business models as the founders had already chosen. Now we get to see a company at the moment of choice. So vote, which business model options do you favor? Traditional strategy, razor and razor blades, or data analytics?
I picked the data analytics.
So just out of those, oh, sorry.
So explain, one of you guys could, like the razor and razor blades option. Like I understand the other two, but that one, like I'm a little fuzzy on.
So that one, they were going to target more small labs, hospitals, places that didn't have the big machines or the room to, like, they didn't have the money to buy a big machine or the room to actually store one. So they were going to open up the,
like focus on like the replacement little things that you use on it, like the actual DNA thing.
yeah, they were going to because their machine's so much smaller, it can fit more places. And so, yeah, it was more about size and opening up a new market instead of going into an existing one.
I kind of, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, I would say either the data one or even the razor and razor blades one, because there's actually a article about that what's the company name? It's in Salt Lake. I think it's New Skin, but that's their business like strategy. Have like this lotion thing. You have to buy replacement lotions for it. And they make all their money off the replacement lotions rather than just the lotion container thing. I forget what the company is called. Diffusers, essential oils, I think is what it's called.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Sell that thing, it's pretty cheap. Then they make all their money off the oil and stuff that they sell. And so because of that, they have people that keep spending money on it. And that was the same with GenapSys or whatever it's called. The little panel things that they put the actual DNA on and it tested it. People had to keep buying those and they made those more expensive strategy. But at the same time, I also like the data one because like this case said, just that's the way that the world is headed, more towards data.
So when I was reading it, up at the very top when it was like describing what the case is about, my first initial one was why don't they do the razor blade and the data analytics? And then at the end, that was kind of another thought they had to do a hybrid of their strategy. But if I was to choose one, I'd probably do the data analytics, just because, I mean, my brother's, or I guess it's my brother-in-law, he does a lot with like programming and like marketing stuff. And like he said, like there's so much money in data. Like if you have like a good database of useful information, like companies pay huge money to have access to that data that you've collected. And it mentions it in the thing that that's just kind of being the Google of DNA, where people turn to you and you get paid to give them access to it. I think that's a really good model. And also, well, yeah, I'll stop there because I don't know what the other questions are. So probably the data. So with the next question, discussing the pros and cons. So we're good with data analytics, other choice, with possible razor. I guess the first one is number of potential customers if they do go with the data analytics. What do you think their potential customer base would be?
Initially, I think. Actually, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I know it mentioned there being like 50,000 labs. I think it was around the world. I think it was around the world, not just here in the United States, but it was 50,000 labs that used the information that the sequencer, or whatever they're called, they use that information. And only like 2,000 of those labs have the money or funding to own that machine. And so I think 50,000, if the information is available, then all of those 50,000 labs would turn to them looking for information on diseases or things that they've found.
Yeah, they also talked about opening it up so that the schools could use it to teach. And so they'd probably, use the other side of that and with the schools, but they could open up some kind of the research to sell to schools to even broaden the teaching.
Also to just households, households as well, because it's affordable enough for them.
I want to meet the guy that wants that device for his household. Like, I'm pretty sure he's going to do some pretty crazy stuff. Like, I don't know, yeah. It just sounds weird to have that as something in your home that you just play with.
Mm-hmm.
Which customers would be expected to pay for the product?
Well, when they talked about it, they talked about, making it affordable for everyone to do the test and then to really make their money on the data. So it would be the people they'd make the money off of would be the researchers.
Website and them offering like to send out tests and you send it back and they give you all the information. Was that something that they were thinking about with the data analytics that they would like when they test it and they give them back the results.
Yeah, they mentioned another company that does that, and that other company only tests like one area or gives you like minimal feedback, and they were gonna broaden that. But yeah, they were gonna.
So that was one of their features, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how they were going to collect the data. They were going to do those tests for like $50 or $100, and then part of that was that they got to keep the results in their data pool and use that.
Gotcha. So that's what you were saying, Braden, with the new skin. So people just pay. They don't pay for the machine, but they pay for the cartridge.
Yeah. Which is more of the razor and razor blades option. But I think what they're going for with like the data thing is that website and the software, whatever they had, would go along with the machine and just give them a lot more information about the results, I guess. That's what I understood. They didn't really have, like, with the data analytics, they didn't have a whole lot of competition, did they?
Not really. They selling the data was it sounded like it was going to be pretty new. There wasn't anyone else out there really doing that. But it was going to cost more up front to do that one, because they didn't have the let's see, they had to do all the coding and everything to keep all that data. So they talked about how much the upfront costs were going to be compared to the other options.
Yeah, I think that was like that and the razor blades ones, because the razor blades one, they had to break even really fast. Like, they had to get a ton of customers in order for that to work. They just had to have a ton of money. Some of them are a little more risky, I would think, than the traditional strategy.
So I think with those two questions, the founder goals and the investor goals. So it sounded like whatever his name is, the guy from Iran and the other lady, it sounded like they both wanted to do the data option, but they also knew that the investors wouldn't want it because it takes a long time for their return to come, and it costs more, and they're gonna have to put more up, and it's riskier. So I think the founders, their goals is to have the Google of DNA, but then the investor goals is just to get them to break even, so they start, I guess, to make money quicker. They start turning a revenue quicker, so they get paid more quickly.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think it's right on too.
So going to the next question, then using the polling tool that allows students to vote and see the overall results, go through the following questions using the Excel model you created before class. Answer the following questions individual answers as a group. So the first one is, if we increase EBIAT sales and hold everything else equal, time to payback is increases, decreases, the same. So did you guys pull up that Excel sheet? Did you look at it?
No, I didn't even know that was a thing.
So every time I go to watch his videos and do some of the stuff he has linked in here, it makes my computer crash. So I started working on it last night and my computer crashed. And so I emailed him about it today. But so I have not yet.
Well, I pulled it up and I like flipped through all the tabs on it. I was like, oh my word, this is a lot to look at and take in. So I didn't like how it says what you set up earlier. Like I don't know what there is to set up because I don't look at the videos.
Yeah, I started watching the videos and I know the videos like walk you through it, but I didn't get very far into them before I had problems.
So if we increase the sales and have everything else equal, time to pay back.
Well, the time to payback would decrease if you increase sales because you'd have more money coming in.
Okay, so
yeah.
EBIAT is earning before interest and taxes, right?
Yeah.
Of course, the would increase. Or sorry, decrease. Would increase, yeah. No, decrease.
Decrease. Time to pay back would decrease. So the revenue would increase. So then the other one, once everyone has responded to the question without help from anyone else, compare answers, discuss until the group settles on a single response. Well, there you go. We all agree that it's decreases. And then if NOA sales increases, cash flow. What is the EBIAT? What do those acronyms stand for? Do you guys remember?
Or interest and taxes.
What is it?
I have no idea. It's earning before interest and taxes.
Oh. NOA.
NOA says it's a notice of assessment, so it's about how much taxes you owe.
Increases.
So let's look at this question again. So if the sales increase that you are taxed on increases,
Would decrease on that. They're going up.
yeah, I would think cash flow would decrease if your taxes increased.
Yeah, I agree. So once everyone has responded to the question without help from anyone else, compare answers, discuss until the group settles on the same response. It's a decrease. Then on the curve below, which segment represents the highest burn rate?
Can you guys see the
So just have a line. Can you guys see the actual chart?
I can't.
I'm assuming, you know, on the exhibit where it has like, I think it's the money out as the, it's at the y-axis, the vertical axis, and then time is the horizontal axis, and the burn rate is like way down, low. Do you guys remember seeing that chart on the exhibit? In the case?
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming it's going to be that lowest, or what the question is, on the curve, which segment represents the height. Oh, well, maybe not. I don't know what segment represents the height.
Yeah, I can't do that.
So the burn rate's how much they're spending every month, right? Through it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see though.
Did you guys get your chart to work?
No. I know I had problems like this in another class, and I had to stop using through Firefox, and then I could see some of these and stuff. So I was going to try that later tonight.
I have Firefox right here on mine.
It's not pulling up on my Firefox either. It's blank.
No? All right.
But I'm thinking it's B and C. If anyone wants to argue with me.
I'll take your word for it.
So the next one, let's see. Discuss as a group what strategies have we seen that flatten or lengthen the cash flow curve. Specifically, try to draw the cash flow curves for Dr. John's products, Rent the Runway and Dropbox as they were described in the case. Just make a rough guess as to the shapes of each of these cash flow curves.
Do we have to have that little graph in order to answer all of these?
No, we can probably just talk about these.
The cash flow curve. So we know what increases it and we know what decreases the curve. So what would flatten or lengthen?
All right. So I read so many cases this week. Which one was Dr. John's?
Wait, which case was Dr. John's? That was the one where I have another one where it had something to do with toothbrush. Yeah, it was the toothbrush.
Oh. Okay. So trying to remember financials on that one.
That was also a very low cost one. The toothbrush was really low cost.
Yeah, and they kind of tested things along the way.
Yeah.
They wanted to know whether it would be better to get like a contract with, I think, Colgate, or to go against the competitors and run the risk of being kind of outbeaten in a year or two because they come out with a toothbrush too and then they have no market.
All right. So I think if I'm doing this right, if he would have, I'm just looking at the next question about if he built his own company or was acquired. If he built his own company, the curve would be much higher because it would cost him more. But when he gets acquired, am I thinking of this right? It's flattened because he won't have all those costs.
Say that one more time in the beginning.
Thinking about it right. Him building his own company would make a higher curve because there would be so many more costs associated with that. Whereas being acquired and having another company come in and he'd have more money, so it would flatten out, and the time to pay back would be much quicker. Because you wouldn't have the.
Is it
You wouldn't have
better for
any
the
of the.
cash flow curve to be flattened?
Yeah, he wouldn't have to pay for any of the manufacturing, things like that.
Rent the runway. So I think with Rent the Runway, if I'm remembering right, one of their decisions was to hold off on adding accessories to it, and just stick with the dresses. So if they would have added accessories, they would have had to build more things onto their website, and then acquired new contracts with jewelry people, which would make that curve have a bigger dip because they would have a longer time to market, or like time to the market when they'd enter, because they would have to add all those things. And then so it would take it longer for it to hit that time to profit line.
Yeah.
Is that what the question's asking? Is that something
Yeah, I think
like
so.
a valid response?
Yeah, I think it goes kind of along with this about the dress designers too, because in that case, they asked the dress designers to just like kind of rent them dresses, so that rent the one where you didn't actually have to buy them. And the designer said no. So I think if they had convinced them, it would be the same with their cost would have been lower if they didn't have to buy those dresses. So the curve would have flattened and been more shallow. But because they had to buy them, like with what you were saying with the accessories, it was steeper and deeper because it was going to take longer because they had that cost involved.
And I feel like that's the same way with Dropbox. They faced the decision whether or not to create that other like pro model of Dropbox, which would have cost a lot more money and time to develop right away rather than waiting, or just not adding it at all.
So pretty much all of these guys have chosen to not like expand before they break even.
Yeah, I think that I know it's not listed on here, but I think that one that we talked about last week, the one that actually didn't work, the A16Z, I think that was part of his problem. Was it was so steep and so deep that his upfront costs were just too much.
That was also the case with the cake guy.
Yeah.
Problem too. Took too much.
So I think that's where, are we learning? No, that's my other business class. So we're learning about the minimum viable product. So it looks like the companies that we've been studying, that they do well and start off just kind of put out the bare minimum just to get it going, and then later on add to it once they see that revenue coming in, rather than starting off with everything possible and then kind of trying to dig their way out of the big hole that they dug themselves to acquire all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's exactly what the cake guy did. Right off the bat, spent a ton of money and a ton of effort, like in the website or whatever, and putting a lot of money into it, and kept getting more investments from people rather than someone else did, of taking it slow and easy and waiting till like you start turning a profit, then expanding.
Yeah.
So with being 8:55, I feel like all the 1, 2, and 3, just discuss all those companies with the cash line or whatever. So you guys just want to, for what decisions Drew Houston making Dropbox that favorable impacted the cash flow curves. I think his ability on marketing and just rely on referrals, and then also to offer the freemium where it's free for users that just want a little bit of data storage, and then those that want a lot of storage they can buy. And so he cut down the cost and cash flow, the expenses, by, I guess, being more frugal in his offerings and what he.
Yeah.
And then 5. Now let's look at the choices. GenapSys has, from a cash flow standpoint, for each business model option under consideration, compare the following: net present value. If someone of the options similar net present value, which is riskier, is it advisable to take additional risk for a similar NPV?
So on that one, I think they're talking about the first option in marketing to the researchers that already have that kind of equipment, because they know it's a proven market. And the cost to do that is going to be the same sort of cost to do the razor and razor blade. But that one's a little riskier because it's not a proven market. They're going to kind of open it up to a new set of businesses. And I would say it's advisable if, it depends on what the founder, you know, what your values are as a company. Like in this case, he wanted to change the world. He wanted to not just do the same thing. So I would say in this case, even though they are similar, that maybe it is good for him to take the risk because that's what he wanted.
Yeah, for sure.
How
GenapSys raise funds to support each option? Is any option clearly more attractive to investors for your answers in your discussion?
We kind of talked about that earlier when we were talking about the data analysis and how he knew it was going to be harder to sell to the investors because it was going to require more upfront.
Yeah, I think either the data or Razorback ones would be more attractive to investors. Doesn't seem like the traditional traditional. I think that really like there's a lot of people in that market. Easy way in there. I don't think that would give them as big of a rate of return. With the other ones, like the last question, like you guys said with the last question, it is riskier. Especially the data one has the most potential to grow. And that's actually in the case what one of their analysis told them that like that's kind of where the world was going with data. And that has the most potential. So I would think that that one would be most attractive to them.
For sure. And for each option, how much of the company will the founders have to give up to reach a goal? So, I mean, I think logically, the more expensive it is, the more investors have to pay, the more equity they receive in the company. And so I think that if they wanted to go with the data analytics, they're going to have to give up more. But if they wanted to go with the less riskier, more established market, then they're going to have to give up less.
Yeah. It said with the razor blade one, they'd have to hire like almost 30, like a marketing team or sales team of like 30 people. Like, that would cost a lot to employ all those people. So I think that one would probably give up the most, and then I would say it would be the actually never mind. I'd probably say the data one, just because of how expensive it is, and then
Yeah.
razor blade.
So last one, put yourself in the shoes of so-and-so and so-and-so and the investors. You must decide as a group which business model you would choose. Be ready to explain this choice in your post discussion. So you guys still all feel good with the data one?
Yeah.
I think so.
Me too.
Like he'd had good luck getting money from investors, and that like finances hadn't been like a big problem. So I think they'd be able to get the create like the software and everything that it was saying that would be expensive. Yeah, I'm still with that one.
And even with the funding they received from other health places, I feel like they're behind the idea and think that it's a great product, and so I don't think it can fail. It's just the time frame, that how long it takes for the data to come in and be able to offer it. Okay, cool. So I'll answer my questions, and then do you want to just put it together again, Braden, and then send it out?
Whenever you're done, just email it to me and I'll put it together and get it back to you guys.
Okay, cool. And then you have the link, Sarah?
Awesome. Yep, I'll send it out in just a minute.
Okie dokie. See you guys.
See ya.
Thanks. Have a nice night.